Battle of Gods, Resurrection of F, the Champa arc, the Future Trunks arc, and of course the Universe Survival arc, Dragon Ball Super has introduced various different concepts and ideas that led us all into a brand new adventure with the new series having to come about. But now with Dragon Ball Super over, let us take a look back and reflecting onto the entirety of what was Dragon Ball Super. And on today's video, we will be diving into the inception of Dragon Ball Super, having to start with the beginning, with the introduction of Battle of Gods, all the way up until the conclusion with the Tournament of Power. So strap on in and hold on to your Dragon Balls, because we're going to be discussing the entirety of Dragon Ball Super next. If you are new to this channel and enjoy what you see, then don't forget to punch that subscribe button and turn on all notifications by clicking on the bell icon to receive new and daily content on your mobile devices, desktops, and services that I provide, along with following me on these social media platforms to stay connected with me at all times. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now let's begin. With the conclusion of Dragon Ball Super, at least for the time being, we have experienced so many things within the Dragon Ball community that stems from Dragon Ball Super the anime in many ways than one, both the good and the bad. And joining me here today to discuss the entirety of Dragon Ball Super are the members of the Dragon Ball community, beginning with my good friend SuperSaiyanPaul. Me and you have been fans of Dragon Ball ever since we were kids, and I remember many years ago, even before Battle of Gods, we spoke about hypotheticals. We talked about, hey, imagine if, you know, Dragon Ball were to come back in the form of a new series and it took place after GT during that time, because we didn't really have any, you know, idea that, you know, we're going to be getting any sort of Super Saiyan God transformation or even having Beerus involved, and for that to spin off and just, you know, go into a new series entirely before GT. What I wanted to talk to you here today, Paul, is about just Dragon Ball Super, the good, the bad, the funky, everything that happened in between. By the end of the series, and what's crazy to me is we spoke about this many years ago, even before Dragon Ball Super's inception. How do you feel about Dragon Ball Super now that it's over? You know, coming off of the Renaissance with Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, and then we had Resurrection of F, and then we had the brand new series. Were you satisfied by the end of it? Because I want to go step by step with this, because I remember how excited we both were back in 2012, 2013, when Battle of Gods was first announced. You were excited, I was excited. During that time, we had a lot of misinformation. We were also putting out misinformed content because we didn't know any better ourselves, with mispronunciations of Beerus, having to call him Bills, and then the whole concept of there being Gogeta, and so many things in between. But then once Battle of Gods was established going into Resurrection of F, we had a great time. So are you satisfied as a fan after what we saw in Dragon Ball Super collectively from start to finish? And going back to the beginning, how do you feel about everything having to look back now, when we first started here on YouTube talking about what if there was a new series, and now that we have one, it's called Dragon Ball Super? So what are your thoughts about the show and just how you feel about it, you know, as a whole?
I absolutely love Dragon Ball Super. Like, from start to finish, it did have a few problems here and there, and if we go like arc by arc, I think my favorite arc was still the Goku Black arc. But other than that, like, it really teaches you something, like, overall as a show, not to take things for granted, because like right now, after it ended with 131 and it being on a hiatus, if anything, it just really brings into light, like, hey, this is gonna go away one day, and it'll give you like the similar feeling to when you were a kid, where you just left like up in the dark with whatever was going on. And I just honestly think that you can't just take this for granted. It's Dragon Ball, it's part of your life, it's part of your culture, and it just makes me feel happier than ever to be a Dragon Ball fan, and that I just don't want to ever see it go away again.
I mean, how did you feel about it, like, collectively, like, starting from the beginning with Battle of Gods? Because we had two incarnations, we had the film and we had the arc, depending on what you like more. I would say the movie was pretty good. The arc definitely changed up a lot of things as we went into Resurrection of F. Now, you said Goku Black was your favorite arc. That was my favorite arc up until the Universe Survival arc. There are certain points that I favor the Goku Black arc more, because I really did enjoy the symmetry and the dynamic that Zamasu and Black had over what we saw with Jiren's backstory. But then again, Jiren collectively as a person, you know, he's a monster. He's like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, with the powers of literally Goku plus Vegeta and more, having to go in there and truck everybody. So I really did enjoy, you know, the way the anime pretty much established itself, even though there were so many inconsistencies, so many flaws, and so many things that really were troublesome to watch in the show. Because, you know, collectively, if you make the argument in saying, well, what anime is perfect, people will rebuttal in saying, well, you have Hunter x Hunter, you have Yu Yu Hakusho, My Hero Academia, Death Note. People would say that, okay, those animes are superior when it comes to consistency. So having to start back from the beginning, let's just go step by step with this. How did you feel about Battle of Gods in terms of what we saw in the arc? Were you enjoyed, or were you satisfied by watching what you saw like during that moment, or did you feel as if something was missing in comparison to the film?
I honestly, like, when I saw that arc and I saw everything come back, I was super hyped because it was a new take on the movie. And I think the only moment in time where I just absolutely was like devastated with my hopes and dreams of the series was, I think, episode 5. That was when SS3 Goku's animation. I think that's what really made me start looking at this in a different light. And it wasn't that I was hating on the show or anything. It was just like, okay, I was expecting like the first 4 episodes in terms of animation and movie quality animation. And then all of a sudden they started throwing this at you, and then it started putting my guard up. So overall, that arc compared to the movie, I still to this day, honestly, I loved the episodes like where they're on the boat, but there's just something about the movie that stood out more to me. And this goes the same for the Frieza arc. Like, moving into that one, I preferred the Frieza movie versus definitely over the Frieza arc. Like, those 2 first arcs, I mean, they didn't really need to retell them. I honestly think those are just fillerized for them to like make more revenue off of that. I think the first episode for me, for real, was episode 1. It was episode 28. My bad.
Oh yeah,
episode 28.
The introduction of Champa and Vados. You're right. But then again, like, do you remember when Battle of Gods was first announced? How hyped the community was. I mean, despite of, you know, whether or not you were, you know, trying to accurately call what the movie was going to be about, a lot of people were very happy because we haven't seen a movie, you know, come about in such a long time after following GT and Z, that when we first got,
canon-wise.
Yeah, canon-wise too. Like, we were, I remember we were all sitting there, we were like, wow, like, what is this movie going to be about? I'll never forget December 2013, I believe, or somewhere, I think it was 2012, somewhere around there. I remember when me and you talked about it, and we, at the time, we were like, yo, who's this cat rabbit looking dude, and what the heck is Goku doing fighting him, and why does he have like this red hair transformation? Like, it was such a glorious time, because back when we first started our channels, we played Budokai Tenkaichi, we pretty much speculated and talked about, you know, what if this took place, what if that took place. We were actually one of the very few first people that created and talked about what ifs way back in the day. There were other people as well, but we kind of more or less dove into like, okay, well, what if this happened that separated the context from this story and stuff. And then finally we had Battle of Gods, and I agree with you. I think that looking at it, the movies were kind of like made to like appeal to the casual audiences in the form of an arc, because they needed to establish the story, because not everyone would go out to see the film, so why not just retell that in the form of the arcs. And for Battle of Gods, I mean, do you think that, you know, with the illusion at the very end with Beerus having to tell Goku like, hey, there's 12 gods, 12 universes, did you know right away that there was going to be something more? Or did you think like, okay, well, that was just put there in the form of like for them just to talk about that and not diving any further into the lore of what the other 12 universes are?
100% I knew there was gonna be something more. Like, literally right after I heard that line, that's when I made videos discussing that. Like, yo, literally, I was like, yo, they're gonna have to introduce these gods. You don't just bring up 12 other universes and never show them. And even before, like, the Tournament of Power, we made videos, and I was talking about a God Summit, like, similar to what they did in Naruto, and guess what happened?
And I remember talking about the potential at the time, before even knowing about Resurrection FF. I talked about how it was possible for them to make a movie similar to Battle of Gods, maybe Battle of Gods 2. And even though I was incorrect in the name assumption of it being called Battle of Gods 2, I was correct on them making another film and even going into a new series, and there's proof of that. So who's the last one laughing now? That's what I say to all the haters. But as we move forward from Frieza, I mean, honestly, the arc for Frieza, I don't know how you feel, the Frieza arc was pretty bad.
Very bad. I think it was the only good part of it was the training. That was only it for me. Like, that was the only thing they really added to that series.
Yeah. Because
the only thing
we never saw them train like that, right? In the film, like, we only saw them train briefly.
Yeah, the only thing that they really added was the beginning of that with Vegeta going to Whis and then getting his little bit of training. Other than that, the arc was just a complete failure to me because even the animators looked like they were bored of it because they literally just did that only a few months ago or even like a year before for the movie, and they had a big budget for that, balls to the wall with everything in the animation quality, and then here they're doing the same thing but at a lower tier. They were getting bored with it, and the audience got bored with it too.
Like, would you say that's like your least favorite arc?
100%. That one was my least favorite one.
That was
I started skipping episodes.
Actually, that was my least favorite arc. I wanted to watch the dub just to see how they were going to do it. The dub actually, you know, presented some really good lines, and it kind of drew you in. But visually, looking at it, it was just really bad, bro. Like I remember sitting there and I said to myself, what in the hell are they doing with the animation? But then again, during that time, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but they were understaffed. Like, they were really understaffed. And, you know, that kind of makes sense going forward because as we had the Champa arc, the Black arc, and the Universe Survival arc, all of a sudden we have, like, 20 bajillion writers, 20 bajillion animators, and then the direction starts to skew. But, like, what were some of your highlights for Resurrection of F? Did you ever think that, yo, listen, did you ever think, first and foremost, after Battle of Gods, they were gonna bring back Frieza and then have him have a golden form equal to a level beyond Super Saiyan God, and that being Super Saiyan Blue?
There was a point in time where we thought there was gonna be no transformations because of the trailers and stuff like that.
I remember me and you talked about how, you know, during the time of the introduction of Battle of Gods, that Super Saiyan God was going to be potentially the final form because, I mean, realistically speaking, what's above a god, you know? And then we have Super Saiyan Blue. So how did you feel about that? Like when you first saw it?
When I first saw Super Saiyan Blue or Super Saiyan God?
Super Saiyan Blue after following Super Saiyan God.
Okay, like honestly, that's why I felt like I was more fatigued than anybody with Super Saiyan Blue. Super Saiyan Blue is great and all, but in that movie particularly, Frieza's transformation was more hype than Goku turning Super Saiyan Blue, and even Vegeta. Like, I think the way they turned into Super Saiyan Blue, it was just so casual compared to other transformations in the series. Like compared to Super Saiyan God and Ultra Instinct.
Oh, the way they went into it, right?
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Like, the only thing that was hype about it for Vegeta was that, wow, Vegeta's made it. But the actual transformation itself, Frieza was powering up and yelling more than they were, and his golden transformation outdid theirs. And I was like, okay, so Super Saiyan Blue. I mean, I honestly agreed with Akira Toriyama at the time, even though he said prior to that red looks stronger than blue. Like, honestly, I would have rather blue first then red, because that red just looked, I mean, like, red looks way tougher. And then I honestly would have rather that than have them have this really stale transformation that they carry for like the next 100 episodes. Like, honestly, I was tired with Super Saiyan Blue after like maybe the first arc with the Champa arc, really.
Well, also Super Saiyan God had like that fiery red aura. Even though he looked like he was in his base form. Well, he was in his base form essentially, but he to me, I didn't like the concept of Super Saiyan God because it just looked pretty basic. I love the aura and I love the execution of his eyes and all that stuff, but it just looks super basic. So when I first saw Super Saiyan Blue, dude, I remember I was like, no way, like they went beyond God, like how strong is this? And then in the same movie, dude, we had the introduction of 3 people having to have brand new transformations. We had 2 Super Saiyan Blues and a golden form, and that to me was just amazing. That's why I feel like, and I went to go see it in theaters. I don't know about you. I went to go see it. I went to go see it in theaters.
Everybody was chanting and stuff. It was amazing.
Everybody went crazy, and that was an experience that I feel like will
I'll
always
never
be
forget
there.
that.
No, I will never forget it because like
the energy.
No, and also what that brought me back to was, I'm fairly certain you saw Pokemon the first movie. That's what it brought me back to. That's what it brought me back to. And I remember like the fans, like for example, when Vegeta went Super Saiyan Blue for the first time, because a lot of people in the theater did not watch Revival of F in the Japanese sub, so they went in there like, you know, with a fresh mind, not knowing what to expect. When they saw Vegeta, because I knew Vegeta was coming, you know, I knew he was going to transform, but when I saw Vegeta transform and I saw the reaction of the crowd, every single person popped. And then when Vegeta beat Frieza down, the crowd went crazy. I mean, what would you say took away from the arc in the, well, actually, what would you say took away from the, overall storytelling standpoint from the arc as opposed to the film? Like, aside from animation, do you think that the arc did anything better in comparison to what we saw in the movie, or vice versa?
I think the only thing they did better was explain the training just like briefly, with Vegeta going to Whis and then him like picking up the rocks that they had and things of that nature, like us actually seeing the transformation and stuff prior to the Frieza arriving. However, back when I first heard of Resurrection of F, I honestly didn't really like the concept of Frieza coming back.
Really?
But now, Yeah, because they just talked about 12 universes. They have all these new characters they could have unveiled, and rather than jump into like this new universe or even jump into the Champa arc and introduce all these characters, they went back to Frieza instead, which is like, I think they should introduce Frieza first, then go to gods, then the next level, and bring us to the other universes. And this one, I felt like they're taking a step back. But now, in the grand scheme of things, they made it work, because the way Dragon Ball Super ended in episode 31, they made it work. But back at the time, I was like, they just told us about brand new universes, and now you're bringing back Frieza? I mean, come on, guys. You guys can make something new. It's been so many years. But they built upon that, so that's why I'm not mad about it.
Frieza also has, like, the most established development within the entire series as well.
Yeah, definitely. But at the time, I was just like, I want something new. I want to see new characters, because after how many years of Dragon Ball Z being gone, like, all we did every single day was just think about, what if this character showed up?
Yo, do you remember how many times, like, we went over each other's houses playing Dragon Ball, and all we did was just talk about, like, what if this, what if that? We even made, like, what if discussions way back in the day. They were very stupid what if discussions, because there was no real analytical breakdowns for each battle. Like, for example, we did what if Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta fought, like, Super Saiyan Vegeta and stuff like that, and, like, you know, we did some, like, pretty crusty battles at that time on Tenkaichi, but we still talked about, like, hypotheticals, what if this person died, what if this person came back, but more or less talking about the events after GT, because that was the only thing we ever, you know, knew of. We didn't think that they were going to create something called Dragon Ball Super, but they did. So after following Frieza, we had the introduction of Champa. Champa was one of my favorites, I'm not gonna lie. I love the establishment that he has with his brother. Like, he's an asshole. That's what he comes off as. He's an arrogant, fat piece of crap, and I just love his overall execution with his god, or with his angel per se. When, you know, Vados always talks down to him, and he's like, shut up. You know, you don't see Beerus talk like that to Whis. So and plus when they have an interaction, it's always great. So how did you feel about the Champa arc? Because I agree with you. I think that the beginning of Dragon Ball Super for me was episode 28, with the introduction of Champa, and then going into the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament. That was when we started getting, like, brand new stuff. How did you feel about that entire arc? Like, what were some takeaways, and what were some stuff that really made you go, wow, that was amazing?
I think for that arc, my eyes were glued to the screen after skipping episodes through the Resurrection F arc, and that's what I've been waiting for how many years, just to see them go off into the universe and explore other characters. And I think that's what I wanted more than the Resurrection F at the time. And then when we finally got it, I was amazed. Every single episode I was watching the minute it came out, and I was like, this is what I've been waiting for how many years. And they did everything that I wanted them to. And then introducing Zeno at the very end was just candy to everything. I think the one thing they could have probably done better was buff up the two minor characters, Botama and Vegeta. But other than that, I think they did very well with the characters that they were given, and the time that they were given, and how the arc was kind of short if you really think about it, but it was still really short but sweet.
Actually, Botamo, he ended up being useless even in the Universe Survival arc. He was just terrible. I think that he had a very unique presence to him, because he was the type of person that if you attack him, your attacks go elsewhere. And after following, you know, Resurrection of F and Battle of Gods, it was very interesting to me to see what they were gonna do, and I really enjoyed. It was crazy to me when I first saw it. I don't know how you felt. First we had Frieza, then we had Frost, and I was like, what the hell? And we were all duped, because Frost made it seem like he was this good guy, so we all, at the time, created, like, our own assumptions, like, wow, how strong is Frost? What if Frost battled Frieza? Because then you have Frieza, who's an evil person, and then his parallel is a good guy, and we all bought into it until we found out, okay, well, you can't trust anyone that comes from Frieza's lineage, or, you know, within that bloodline or race, because they're all scumbags, and that's what Frost was, a scumbag. And I really enjoyed him, and then seeing Kaba, another Saiyan. We haven't seen another Saiyan in, like, ages, with Tarble and Broly and Turles and all that kind of stuff. It was insane. And then we had Hit, which was everybody's favorite, including mine. So how did you feel about the fights, and like what did you think when we saw Hit? Because when I first saw Hit, I knew something was up with him. Even though in the manga he was beat by Super Saiyan God easily, and then by Super Saiyan Blue, in the anime, as opposed to the manga, he did a much better job in knocking out Vegeta and then fighting Goku to the point where he made him quit. So how did you feel about all that?
I really liked it, and I liked the character that we got from him, with him thinking that he was being used as a pawn, and they really made his character just so much better than Jiren, in my opinion. Like, in terms of character, I think Hit, even though he's a quiet antagonist at the time to us, he was still like very interesting in terms of like his lineage, him being 1,000 years old, and then his powers and him constantly improving through battle. I think they developed him in that more than Jiren in that type of sense. In terms of power scaling and stuff, I loved his techniques, like him powering up at that speed and then showing us all of his moves and time skip and all this stuff. I absolutely loved him as a character. Like, I had no complaints, and this is perfectly fine at the time. It's just that I think later on with Jiren, they made some mistakes by kind of copying his character in a few ways and falling short with others, but we'll go into that later. But Hit overall, I think Hit and Frost really stole the show, and Kaba just being a Saiyan, that concept in itself really brought a lot of hype to this arc more than anything.
Also, let's not forget that Hit was able to improve so much that, I mean, after following ROF, when Vegeta beat down Frieza, I was saying to myself, damn, here's Vegeta who just beat Golden Frieza getting knocked out by Hit. Like, I never thought I would see that. And then Goku came in to save the day. And who could ever forget Kaioken times 10 when it was first introduced with Super Saiyan Blue? It looked fantastic. And it's always been bothering me as to why they never went back with that concept of keeping Goku kind of grayish looking. Because remember when Goku first went into Kaioken times 10 Super Saiyan Blue, and he looked like visually different, like he looked like he was on fire? Like, I wondered like why they didn't stick with that, because in the Universe Survival arc, whenever Goku went Kaioken times 10 or 20, the only increase was the aura. There wasn't any like shading differences, there wasn't any like texture differences, like, because when he fought Hit, he looked visually different. He looked like he was like either on fire, he had like grayish hair. So like, why is it that you feel like they did that? I mean, was it mainly for like aesthetics during that moment with Hit? Or was it like a simple mistake in the idea that they never wanted to do that to begin with, but they ended up changing it down the line? Because with that moment in and of itself, it was amazing. Because once Hit had the upper hand, first Goku had the upper hand, then Hit had the upper hand, and then Goku switched it up. He went Kaioken times 10, beat Hit down, and then Hit improved and came back at him. It was crazy. So how do you feel about the visuals that we saw from Kaioken times 10, and what did you think about the fight with Hit?
I think they did a really smart move with Kaioken. Like, honestly, with the nostalgia factor from that form and him combining it with a brand new form, it's almost like they gave us a new form, but at the same time they didn't. And rather than giving us like a brand new hair color or anything, they added on and brought nostalgia back together. Like, it was like the perfect thing for them to do at the time without rushing a brand new transformation directly after the Super Saiyan Blue Frieza arc. So I think Super Saiyan Blue being the main transformation of the series, adding a few twists like that, and Super Saiyan Evolution, even though I don't think it's like the best form of it, I think Kaioken was the best thing for them to do. And scaling the power, it never really was super definitive as to where that laid, like in terms of how much stronger was it than average Super Saiyan Blue. But I liked it. It brought back nostalgia, and to the fight, it just brought a lot of hype to it. Because I mean, remember when he blasted Hit with the Kamehameha wave and everything? Yeah. That moment, that was just so mesmerizing to see this, and I think they brought the nostalgia with the new, and it's absolutely everything I wanted. That's why I had zero complaints with this arc, really. I
just think that the only downside was allowing Piccolo to be such a subjugated bitch against Frost. I really wanted to see Piccolo get in there and slug it out with somebody, because to me, Piccolo has always been one of those, you know, characters that really used to put in work when he would fight. And here we never got to see that. It was more or less disappointing because, you know, he wrapped himself around Frost, and he was about to use the special beam cannon, and all of a sudden Frost poisoned him. And I really did enjoy the poison stuff. I don't know how you felt about it, but I really did enjoy that. Like, it felt different to me. I was like, oh shit, he can actually poison people. And then even with the entire fight with Hit and Vegeta and Hit and Goku, I think it was done very, very well. And then we go into, you know, the conclusion with them meeting Zeno. How did you feel about Zeno? Like, the first time you saw him, like, everyone was shook. The gods were shook. Like, that was the first time we ever saw Beerus, like, shook, because the whole time he was the one flexing, but then when Zeno arrived, he pretty much backed down. So, you know, seeing Zeno for the first time, how did you feel about that?
The first time I saw Zeno, I was just in awe. Like, this guy is the god of everything. Yes. And remember back before the tournament even aired, they were saying something very crazy is going to happen towards the end. Something's going to come out of nowhere. And when he showed up, I mean, even Beerus's and Champa's reactions really sold it, because like their faces, they dropped to the floor immediately. And I was like, what is this? Who is this kid? And then all of a sudden Goku's picking up the god of everything, shaking him. And I'm like, uh-oh, everybody's dead. Everybody's dead.
Yeah, they're all dead. It's over. Or why did
It's over. Goodbye. You're gonna end up like the rest of the universes that he destroyed prior to this. But honestly, I think him was like just the icing on the cake for that arc. I think the only other thing I would have wanted was like maybe a little bit better animation here and there. But they stepped it up compared to the Frieza arc. And story-wise, like I liked the part with the poisoning and stuff like that, and having Goku come back in because technically Frost was cheating. I think a very big missed opportunity though was Majin Buu. Like both
yes,
in Tournament Power
yes.
and that one like. He slept out through maybe majority of the series up until like the exhibition match, and then went right back to sleep again. I was like,
Monaka too. That's traditional Toriyama-esque work right there. Monaka having to be a giant lie just to get Goku motivated like that. That was something that when I first saw it, because I really did think like, okay, well, is Beerus telling the truth? Is this guy supposed to be like, you know, the person that is Beerus' great rival, and it turns out to be a nobody. I agree. Majin Buu has been one of the biggest disappointments in this entire series. I'm gonna put that out there right now. Next to Gohan. Majin Buu did nothing. I'm sorry, Majin Buu could have been such a huge factor in all of this. He did nothing. Same thing applies to Gohan. Before we go into the Goku Black stuff, like, let's just lay it out there right now. How did you feel about seeing what we saw with Gohan and Majin Buu and Piccolo and even some of the other side characters, Kuririn, Tenshinhan, more or less Gohan and Buu, because those are like the two big, you know, featured characters in the show aside from everybody else, because prominently coming off of Dragon Ball Z, we had Majin Buu, Gohan, Vegeta, Goku, etc. So how did you feel about Gohan and all this? I mean, he had some shine in the Universe Survival arc, but before all of that, Battle of Gods, Resurrection of F, the Universe, you know, Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament, nothing. How did you feel about that? Like, do you feel like they did Gohan injustice, or more or less do you feel like it was best to not have Gohan do this because he was never a fighter to begin with?
I mean, he had one tiny moment with him going back into Mystic Gohan back in Battle of Gods, but he was wiped to the floor immediately, and then bringing him back for the exhibition match and finally seeing that little curl in his hair gave us a lot of hope. I mean, I thought he was going to come back for the Champ arc. It didn't happen. And then in the Tournament of Power, they had all of this hype around him, and they failed to utilize this thing. Like, again, like he was just ringed out with Dispo, with Frieza doing the friendly fire thing. And it was like, come on, man. It's been over 20-something years where Gohan hasn't had a transformation or even had the spotlight like that. And they really messed it up. I think they did good with some of the side characters, though. I mean, mind you, before the Tournament of Power, Universal Survival arc, it was the Goku and Vegeta show with maybe 1 to 2 characters shoot in. And I think before this, with it just being Goku, Vegeta, then maybe Trunks sprinkled in there or another character, I think the Tournament of Power was the best effort they had at fixing this. And they did with some characters, especially Android 17 and Frieza, but they didn't do enough to make them justifiable compared to like some of the other ones. Like, what happened to Krillin and Master Roshi? I think Master Roshi got like some of the worst treatment. Like, I hated that Master Roshi episode, by the way, in
which
the Tournament of Power.
Oh, Charles Universe. Oh yes, Evil Roshi per se. Yeah, that was pretty bad. I mean, there was lots of things. Speaking of Gohan, I think the worst moment for me was seeing Gohan versus Waragash. That was just bad. Gohan having to take up a role for a movie, and then him having to save this this girl. It was so dumb. And Waragash was such a ripoff of Baby that I felt like this was just complete dog shit to me. I felt like they didn't do Gohan justice in this anime. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you want to back it up by saying he fought the Namekians. Cool. That was his only ever moment. He never did anything against, I mean, he tried against Frieza, but more or less it's like, I think at that point, he should have realized I need to train, because Father's not here and nobody here is to protect everyone. So what if someone else, you know, ends up showing up and nobody's here to protect, you know, our family and our friends? I'm gonna have to step it up. And I really did enjoy how Frieza death beamed the shit out of him, like to the point where, like, dude, he was on the ground bleeding. He was done for if it were not for his father showing up. But then after that, they did not execute his character in the proper way to further develop him in such a matter to where you actually cared for him. They dropped the ball during the Universe 6 vs 7 tournament. How awesome would it be if Gohan was there, bro? Come on. And then the same thing with Goku Black. So, you know, do you think that Dragon Ball Super was never meant for Gohan anyway, or do you feel like he could have had more moments, but they just chose not to involve him?
I think with the hype off of DBZ, I feel like they put all of their money and Vegeta. Like their hypeness alone like sold everything. Like especially like the movies. Every time you saw Goku and Vegeta, I think that's where the hype was at the peak.
Right.
I think Gohan was just like a little side character at a point, because I mean, remember the backlash with Gohan taking over the series after Goku dies in the Cell arc? I think they didn't want to repeat that mistake in some way, shape, or form, and they were just like, the fans love Goku and Vegeta, let's just keep these two as the poster boys and have small moments for the rest of the characters in the show. I don't necessarily say that's a completely bad thing given the amount of episodes we had, because if we only had 131 episodes and they try to develop these other characters too much, it would have been a little bit too evened out for me. I like what they did. I think they did good with what they had here, but they missed some serious opportunities. Gohan, unfortunately, got fodderized, and I think after that Resurrection F arc, he just became a walking meme.
He was.
And there was
yeah,
hope.
he was.
There was hope for him in the exhibition match and stuff after that, but I don't think he lived up to that hope and that hype that they created right before the Universal Survival arc.
Imagine Gohan versus Frost or Gohan versus Kaba during the tournament. How awesome would that have been? Or even seeing Gohan square up against Hit and still get bodied. I mean, I would have liked that more, just to see him get involved. And then we had Majin Buu, who slept more than once during this entire anime, and it's just like, why? Where was Buu? So, like, do you think that Buu, once again, was never made to be in Super to begin with? Or do you feel like they could have done more, but they just chose not to?
I think they just decided, you know what, he was like the last villain in Dragon Ball Z. You know, he's had his time, and let's not, you know, like, utilize him. Especially with after that Resurrection F arc, they basically fodderized Buu in a way where, okay, Frieza trained for 4 months, all of a sudden he's stronger than Majin Buu.
Yeah.
Like, they nerfed him severely with that comment alone, and I was like, okay. I mean, we loved Buu. I still love Buu to like this day, and especially after seeing him get jacked ripped. But they failed to use him as a character too. I would have preferred him over Master Roshi in the tournament, or a few of the other characters.
No, hell no. Keep Roshi. Get rid of Tien. He provided nothing.
Yeah.
He provided nothing. Yeah. But then we went into the Potafu stuff, which was very interesting. We saw Copy Vegeta, which Brian Drummond did an amazing job in the dub. How did you feel about all of that? Because I felt like they wanted to pay a little homage to baby Vegeta by giving Vegeta a pacifier, hence, you know, the pun, you know, because it looks like he's sucking on a pacifier like a baby Vegeta. So, and then they introduced Copy Vegeta having to fight Goku, which I thought was pretty cool. That could have turned into an arc, an entire story, if they could have played off of it correctly. I didn't like how the Liquid was more or less like just moving from person to person, trying to, you know, capture civilizations or whatever. It just felt kind of dumb. I would have preferred an individual, and I really did enjoy the way Copy Vegeta came about. Like, how did you feel about like all the filler stuff that we saw in Dragon Ball Super? Like, do you feel like they could have done better, or do you feel like what made Super that much more enjoyable was perhaps the filler, like the Slice of Life episodes, the Orale episode, the baseball episode, the Potafu arc stuff? Like, how did you feel about all that?
I absolutely love the baseball episode, by the way, but I think I don't mind the filler. Like, on other shows, I hate filler
like
more
Naruto.
than anything, especially Naruto and Boruto. And then with Dragon Ball Super, there was just something very, very surreal about looking at our characters on screen, and then every time you look at them, like, I'm always keeping that thought in the back of my head. Like, what if next week Dragon Ball Super ended? Where are you guys now? Like, every Saturday is gonna be depressing after that, and look where we are here. Like, I wouldn't mind having filler from now until like the next arc, if that was the case. Like, from now all the way to December, if they were able to do that. And I think these Slice of Life episodes, yes, some were like really filler-esque and kind of cringy, and that you could skip over. But there was just something about it, like, that was just very upbeat and kept a lot of positivity throughout it. And it never really felt like complete filler, but it was still good to see our characters on screen every other Saturday. And I think one of the good things about it was like filling up the other characters that wanted the spotlight, like paying homage to Yamcha getting defeated in that baseball episode, and having like almost a frame by frame of what happened with the Simon arc. I like little goofy things like that. And then going back with the Copy Vegeta thing, I think they really, and that was a good way to start off the filler, because in terms of like titling the episode Goku versus Vegeta, or Copy Vegeta, like, it kind of really fooled a lot of people into thinking, all right, we're seeing this rivalry show up yet again this early on in the series, which wasn't the case, but it was all right. I'm not gonna say it was bad. There was other main episodes that were bad, but the filler, it wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. I think it was in the middle. It was balanced.
Now that's set up for one of the most shocking things ever, which was Goku Black. Everybody and their mothers were talking about, who is Goku Black? Is he future Goten? Is he so-and-so? Is he Goku from the future timeline resurrected? Like, who is he? What is he? It was such an amazing moment. I loved Goku Black so much. He was one of my favorites, to be honest. And seeing how Zamasu, and believe it or not, if you really look at the context of Super with that story, a lot of it made sense with Zamasu. He said that, you know, humans were granted the knowledge of good and evil, and they use it to their own will to do bad things, and that's not a lie, right? We as a human civilization, we do that. We tend to get knowledge and we tend to use it for, you know, malicious things. How did you feel about the Goku Black arc? Because the moment that arc started, Black killing Bulma in pursuit of Trunks, Trunks having to go get his father and Goku to help him, Black having to meet Goku, all these things. How did you feel about the Goku Black arc? Because it was one of my favorite arcs. If anything, it's just slightly below the Universe Survival arc, and the only reason for that was because they really messed up the end of this arc. Like, they really started off hot, and then they ended up dropping the ball. So how did you feel about this arc as a whole? Like, what were some ups and downs for you?
I 100% agree with you. Like, towards the end, I think that was the biggest flaw with it. But the beginning, like, there's nothing more, like, it brought back that little kid feeling I had with everybody trying to figure out who are these characters that are showing up on the screen right now. Like, where is Goku Black coming from? And I think back in the day, that was one of the best things about Dragon Ball, like trying to figure out what's going to happen next and where are these characters, the origins of these characters, and speculating on what ifs. Like, I absolutely loved that as a kid. Like, what is Majin Buu going to turn into next, and all these things. And that Goku Black arc brought it back so well, because we see our hero become the villain right before our eyes, and that moment he killed Bulma, all of a sudden you knew this arc is going dark. Like, it's going dark.
Oh, hell yeah. And keep in mind, Bulma was killed technically by her best friend, because that was the first person she ever met in Dragon Ball.
The symbolism there, it was just, from the second you saw it, this is something different.
Yeah, even though it wasn't Goku, it was somebody that was taking the form of Goku. Because how many times have we seen evil Vegeta or, you know, stuff like that? This was totally different. This was out of left field, man.
And that's why I gave them so much respect for that, because it was a ballsy move for them to go back to the Future Trunks arc and try to initiate this type of stuff. And it was like, this is something that came from complete left field, and they knocked it out of the park with the first, like, 3/4 of this arc. I think towards the end, it got a little they played around with it too much. Like, it got played out a little bit, and they ended up rushing characters that weren't supposed to be in there, Vegito, and then on top of that, I mean, just the way that they finished up the villain, not necessarily the best, but the overall grand scheme of things, Zamasu did win in his own right. And seeing two Xenos in their own universe, that's his trophy of his mark on the world. Like up to this day, at the very end of Dragon Ball Super, there's two Xenos. That's Zamasu's trophy, saying he just destroyed a universe. I mean, the entire, like, not only that, he killed every mortal in that timeline, and he won in a way.
Yeah, he did. But also, Vegito was never Toriyama's idea to begin with. Toei was behind that, which, I mean, to their credit, I really do like the fact that Vegito came back. I just didn't like how he was executed. Obviously, they nerfed him because he was very strong, so they gave him, like, the time limit, which, again, it was very interesting to see Vegito fight somebody who can't die, because then it's like, oh, okay, no matter what you do, there's a possible chance that your attacks are going to be nothing compared to this guy. And we saw the introduction of the final Kamehameha, which was never shown in the anime before. That's actually a video game adaptation. So they took a video game move and they made it canon, which was the final Kamehameha, and I was mesmerized by it. But then we saw how Zamasu kept coming back, and as much as Vegito pushed him, you know, he was just laughing in Vegito's face and saying, you know, this is what a true god is. This is the embodiment of what I am. And then ultimately we saw the ass pull, the ass pull of all ass pulls, which was, you know, Trunks having to garner the energy of the people that were there presently on that planet, which was about like a handful, in, you know, having that be fused into the sword and slashing Zamasu in half. That to me was just terrible. I don't know how you felt about that.
Yeah, I think with this arc, this is where the ass pulls really started becoming up. And I think more than anything, this one's launched like the future of series. Trunks getting that win, as much as I love Trunks as a character, that one was one of the biggest ass pulls. Then Vegito, I mean, I can see why they nerfed him. I mean, it was just fan service more than anything. I love the animation in that scene, but just the way that he came, he disappeared as fast as he erupted. And I was like, I was like, come on, man. Like, what are you guys really trying to do with this? And then all of a sudden, Zamasu, he was immortal and he had limitless potential. They fused it and he became his own undoing. And it was like, really, why are you guys rushing this? It was such a good arc, and then all of a sudden, it seemed as though Toriyama and the studio had a clash, and you can really see it in the show.
I really did enjoy Vegito's introduction because what made Zamasu so interesting was, yes, you can't take away the fact that he was extremely powerful with the fusion, but also when he was fighting Vegito, it was evident that even though Vegito was stronger, Vegito still can't kill somebody that just cannot die. So that was very, very interesting to me, because then it's like, okay, well, what do you do? And then they give it to Trunks, and I was like, okay, well, that's kind of dumb. Even though it ended off with Trunks having to be the hero of his own story, which made sense, I would have preferred it to where it would have been more fitting to see Trunks kill either Zamasu or Black separately, and then having Goku and Vegeta finish off the other person, like, at the same time, per se. But then again, if that were to happen, we would have never seen fusion to begin with. So, what do you think would have been, like, the ideal for this arc, in order to finish it up, for you to say, okay, well, everything makes sense, and I accept it the way it is now?
I think for them to finish it off and make it make sense, there's just something about him being defeated by one of the main characters, like Goku. It would have been perfect if he was defeated by Vegito in the right sense, where he didn't mess up his own fusion and they had one really big clash where he wasn't half melting.
Yeah.
I would have rather that than have him be his own undoing. On top of that, Trunks getting this major power buff. On top of that, nerfing Vegito at the same time, all in like the time span of only a couple of episodes. And then them destroying the universe just like that, like calling Zeno, undoing everything, and just eliminating like that. It was like, okay, so now they don't even have to defeat villains in Dragon Ball Super anymore. Just push the Zeno button and you're good. I think that those four things mainly is what really messed up the ending of that arc. But if it was just one big clash with Vegito versus an falling apart Zamasu and he was actually perfecting the fusion, that would have been good. And them defeating it and saving Trunks, I would have liked that, but that wasn't the case.
I really think that the ending was very, very, like, rushed. It was very disappointing, to say the least. Was it good in terms of substance? Perhaps. But then we go into the Universe Survival arc. Now, the beginning of this arc was, to me, depending on how you want to look at it, there were lots of boring scenes. We had... the beginning started off very hot because Beerus warned Goku, don't go see Zeno, don't remind him of the tournament, don't do this. And Goku did it, and we felt this ominous kind of like vibe coming from like this whole thing, and like it's like okay, well, there's going to be a tournament. If you lose, you die, and it's like, okay, that's kind of grim. But the boring parts, I think, were Goku having to recruit everybody, because the whole fight with Tien and Roshi was just very meaningless and boring. The whole spotlight with Krillin, useless, because Krillin didn't amount to anything in the Tournament of Power. The only good things that I see coming from the recruitment process was Gohan versus Goku, and seeing Whis train with Vegeta, seeing Whis train with Goku in the Gravity Room, and also seeing Goku versus 17. So before the actual Tournament of Power, how did you feel about the whole recruitment process? Because the Zen exhibition stuff was good too, but it was just like, okay, here and there.
At first, I skipped through some of the episodes, or like I was skipping while watching like 5 minutes into each part of it, because it did get boring in some of those episodes. I mean, I enjoyed that we were getting episodes, but at the same time, it was a little bit too heavy on the filler side. It would like you said, Krillin and Tien and Master Roshi. Yeah. I think the best thing we got out of it though was Frieza.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
That saved that entire part of it, and I think it made it worthwhile. So that's why I can't necessarily complain about that. And the exhibition match, I mean, it was just like a teaser as to what we were going to get later on. And it was everything I was wishing for. Like, when I saw that exhibition match show up for the first time, that's what I expected from Dragon Ball Super from the moment Beerus said in Battle of Gods, there's other universes.
Yes,
and they literally brought them to life.
All of them. We saw all of them gathered together, and nobody knew what the hell was going on until... And you know what? I really liked Bergamo, because he called out Goku. He was like, yo, everyone, he's the enemy of the universes. This is the problem. And everyone's like, yeah, I think you're right. Like, that was such a cool moment. And then even the Trio of Danger in the Tournament of Power were put to shame, as good as they were in the Zen exhibition match. So and then with Frieza, I remember when I broke the news with everybody else that Frieza was coming back, people were like, no, it's clickbait, it's not possible. But then, you know, come to find out, according to the translations, it was possible. And it was amazing to see, because how many people expected to see Frieza once again come back in Dragon Ball, not to fight, but to help our heroes in this grand scheme, in this grand, you know, tournament that involved your own universe. So up until that point, where they left and they went to the World of Void. How did you feel about the whole like recruitment process, the filler stuff before they went to the Void?
Other than that, like I like them trying to revive Gohan's fighter and back into shape, and then them getting 17 as well. They really set the foundation for everything, and they utilized things that they used here, especially I think more than anything Frieza was like the definition of what they should have done, because honestly, like I said before, I would have rather seen this arc over the Resurrection arc, F arc, but when they really brought everything together, it really made sense for them to have that arc in the first place.
Exactly.
To, like, bridge everything in some like really good character development for Frieza, and that was the smartest move by far in Dragon Ball for me, and Dragon Ball Super, like having Frieza be brought back into this tournament, and the way they executed him, flawless, like absolutely 10 out of 10 execution for him. Redeeming him as a character and seeing where his future is going to be really cool to see how this future Dragon Ball series is going to go with him, because he's still going to be a bad guy. He hasn't exactly been 100% redeemed as a good guy, and he has his army, so it always begs the question to see like what is he going to do when he's on screen, and that's one of the greatest things about Frieza. As for the other characters, 17 came out of nowhere, being the MVP of this tournament, and like when I first saw him in that recruitment arc, I was like, okay, 17's cool and all of a sudden he's Super Saiyan Blue level.
Yeah.
And this is where you started seeing them giving the spotlight to other characters, but 17 came out of nowhere for me. Like I was like, out of everyone, 17 became the MVP. Did anyone really predict that before this tournament came out?
Not a single person. And this is where we go into the Tournament of Power stuff, because the Tournament of Power, as good as it was in some aspects, there were so many things that happened that where it was just flat out stupid. Like there were certain things that didn't make any sense. Lots of character, you know, directions that were altered and changed from the beginning. How did you feel about the actual Tournament of Power stuff? Because what I really enjoyed, do you remember when the Daishinkan was just about to just say ready, set, go, fight? He asked everybody, is everyone ready? And then for a split moment, right before Daishinkan said begin, we saw like all these different camera angles of all the universes. Everybody was ready. Hit, Vegeta, Gohan, Toppo, Jiren, Goku, everyone was just standing there, and the music was very ominous, the setting was very ominous, and the second Daishinkan said begin, all hell broke loose. How did you feel about... Yeah, exactly. How did you feel about all this? Like, how did you feel about the Tournament of Power stuff? Because I hated Ribrianne, I hated Universe 4, because Universe 4 did nothing. Gamisara's Daemon did nothing. None of the other fighters did anything, you know. So like looking at it from that standpoint, like how did you feel about the tournament, and what are some things that you really did not like?
I absolutely love the concept of it, but one of the main things that they dug themselves into a hole with here is that a lot of these characters just got introduced to, and we have no context to them whatsoever, besides Toppo and Jiren maybe, and Kale and Caulifla. That was the only characters that we really got anything prior to this with, and we knew right off the bat, a lot of you guys are going to get fodderized. Like what we see right here is the most we're going to get from you. There's not going to be an attachment. There's not going to be this sense of thrill against you guys, because you guys are meaningless compared to the other guys that are going to be coming up. So, I mean, right away, you knew people were going to get fodderized. Ribrianne stole the show more than Jiren did at some point.
And that
was probably not in a good way. Like, I think her name became bigger than his in terms of like just how much people hated her and how much screen time she got over Jiren. And it was wasted screen time that they could have put into Jiren's character, who overall I think was still shallow at the very end. Like, if you look at his backstory, we could have gotten an entire episode of some of these other characters' backstories and their motivations and their wishes, which we still didn't even know what Jiren's wish is, but we got Ribrianne. What is this? Like, honestly, that was the part that really messed it up for me. I'm like, I would like to know what these other characters are fighting for, other than just trying to resurrect the universes. Like, what was Jiren's wish that they were kept hyping up about, but they never brought into fruition here? Like, what was it?
Yeah. They never really specified as to what it was. Which, like, all right, let me ask you: did you like Jiren before, or did you like Jiren after? Like, for example, did you like him in the beginning of the Tournament of Power? Did you like him in the middle of the Tournament of Power? Or did you more or less like him more at the end of the Tournament of Power? Because from what I see it as, there's 3 different versions of Jiren. There's the calm, cool, collected one in the beginning. There's the I'm arrogant, kind of like fuck all of you kind of, you know, Jiren in the middle. And then we had the aggressive Jiren at the end. Which one did you like the most?
I think as the Tournament of Power went on, Jiren's hype just kept dropping. Like, at the very end, I saw that aggressive Jiren, like, in my head the moment. Okay, this guy's big and bad, but see him in episode 131, all battered and bruised up from Goku. I'm not sure how it's gonna happen, but it's gonna happen. And that's why I was like, we gotta get some more character for this guy. That's the only thing that's gonna save it, because we know his impending doom is gonna be coming. There's no way he's gonna defeat Goku. And I think in the very beginning, I think the highlight for Jiren for me was when Kale was on a rampage.
Oh yeah, dude.
This guy, you explain what happened, because that I really enjoyed, and here's the thing, right? So I really enjoyed how, and we did a video about this, and I showcased evidence where Vegeta told Goku, Kakaroto, be careful, because this is what a true Super Saiyan could be. This is what the true form may look like. And when Kale went about her rampage, she was shaking. Listen, so much for the Kaching stuff that the tournament was made out of, because the Grand Priest was like, this is the strongest metal in all the known universes, and everybody was breaking it like so easy. It's like, what the fuck? So Kale, just by transforming, broke the entire arena. She was breaking, cracking everything. She literally caused a mess with all the debris everywhere. I loved how, as she went on a rampage, she knocked out Vaughn first, which is one of the fighters from Universe 11, and then as soon as she powered up, Toppo was like, she's really something, ain't she? And then that's when Jiren said, I'll take this one. And then with complete ease, one-shotted her and saying, oh, Wadida, it's over. Boom. The explosion happened, Kale dropped, which is kind of weird. I don't know if you, I mean, obviously plot saved Kale because they needed to keep her around, but it didn't make any sense to me how Jiren eliminated Hit with the exact same blast and the exact same radius, but then still kept Kale around. Like, you know what I'm saying? But that whole sequence with him being there, and then that epic stare down between Hit and Jiren before Goku got in the way, it was amazing. So how did you feel about like the fight between the girls and Goku and that whole ordeal? Well, I mean, before the actual tournament aired, like going back to Hit, we did predict that he was gonna get fodderized by Jiren in some shape or form.
Yeah.
Like we did say, like, okay, we have a new guy here. Gonna have to take out the baddie, and we did get in that little film, get a moment with Hit, like a redemption type of thing where he actually killed Goku in a way. He beat Goku, then Goku came back and defeated him. So that's what I liked about that.
Speaking of that, now that you brought it up, thank you so much for reminding me. What did you feel? How did you feel about that rematch? I hated that rematch so much. That was not a rematch to me. I'm sorry. I don't care who you are. That's not a rematch to me. I feel like the fight between Hit and Goku on Earth was so watered down. I really wanted them to fight in the tournament. They didn't. That was a huge disappointing thing. Seeing them fight on Earth was just bad for me. How did you feel about that? Because I hated every minute of it.
It was watered down. I think the only part about it that I liked was the fact that the mystery when we saw the spoilers is that Hit's gonna come out of nowhere and kill Goku some way, shape, or form. And when we saw it on screen and everyone crying, it got to me. But other than that, the actual fight after it wasn't the best. But at least it's follow-up compared to what happened now, because now that the show's over, we don't get any follow-up with Jiren, and we don't know when we're gonna get that, if we are gonna get that. But I like that we had some more interactions with the other characters throughout the filler arc after those tournaments were over, bridging into the new one. And that's what kind of, I mean, with all the things happening in Tournament of Power, I did want to see a Goku versus Hit rematch, or even a Vegeta versus Hit type of thing. But at the same time, there's just so many characters here. We can't get them to fight all in this timeline. So I think one of them had to go, and Hit had to be it.
Now, are you disappointed that we didn't see Hit do much? We just did a video discussion talking about the missed opportunity between Vegeta and Hit. And that was a fight that I really wanted to see because, listen, the guy, I don't know if you remember, Vegeta targeted Hit until Botano got in the way. And I was really salty about that. I was like, wait a minute, like, come on, like, let them fight. Do you think that Hit was just a complete waste? You know, or do you think that they could have done more but then just ultimately didn't decide to actually go through with it because they had other plans with Kefla?
I think that they had plans with the Saiyans, Kale and Kefla, like all of these other guys. The development from the Saiyans, you could see that they're starting to bridge this into the future series. Like, I mean, there was even rumor for that plan Dala arc, and it made more sense for them to go with their cards played on these Saiyans rather than Hit, because we've seen Hit before, we've seen Hit being defeated, and having Jiren defeat him even like states that, okay, everybody take your focus off of the previous guys, we have a new threat here, it's Jiren. And it was in the proper moment too, because that's when Jiren's hype was still at its highest, and this built it even more. So I think in a way they still did it right. I mean, it's a letdown to see that the Z Warriors didn't really get that defeat on him, but at the same time, they played it smart, because I mean the Saiyans still might have a very big role in the upcoming future of the franchise, and them putting their cards on the table with them they might pull another thing what they did with Frieza here. Like they created an arc with Frieza, and all of a sudden they really brought it into fruition here at the end of Dragon Ball Super. They might redo the same exact thing, and it'll turn out all right.
What did you think about like the end of the tournament? Because even though it wasn't just recent, but it happened with, as you said, 17 being the MVP. Do you believe that it would have made more sense for Vegeta to be the last one in there? Like, for example, what if it wasn't 17? What if 17 did his thing and it all came down to Vegeta, Frieza, and Goku? And what if Goku and Frieza did their thing, but the last person was Vegeta? Like, do you think that would have been a better ending for Vegeta to finally have a big victory and being the last one in the ring? Or do you feel like it made sense more or less for them to give it to 17?
I think it would have made more sense for them to give it to Vegeta, honestly. I think because this was the Goku and Vegeta longest, and I know a lot of people complain about that, but if you look at the characters on screen, especially with Frieza being there, these are like the big three of everything, and the lore and everything about the show revolved around these three, and having a show like Vegeta's character development towards the very end throughout the entirety of Dragon Ball Z and Super, and showing them standing side by side with the person that murdered and launched genocide against their race, it would have been truly amazing. But I'm still happy with what we got, because they gave character development to another character that we saw coming out of left field, and I think that was like the purpose of the Tournament of Power. They didn't do it with everyone, but at least we got it with somebody. However, I would have actually still preferred it to be Vegeta, but not taking away from MVP 17, because he's still a badass.
Now, honestly, don't be biased here. Honestly, do you prefer Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super? Honestly,
Dragon Ball Z. Dragon
Ball Z. Why is that?
For this, like, the sheer fact that, I mean, even in the English dub, there's different feel to the show, and from pure, it could be pure nostalgia or not. I mean, for me, the best iteration for Dragon Ball for me was, I mean, especially because of Dragon Ball Super. I'm gonna go into this for a second. Like, you can't take it too seriously. That's what something that Dragon Ball Super taught me, and some people might be purists or whatever, but I still prefer the Bruce Falconer version of Dragon Ball Z with the Funimation voice actors. That to me was the greatest version of Dragon Ball. It didn't take itself too seriously to the point where like I cared about power scaling and stuff like that. I just loved like the characters that we got and like the feel that you get from watching it, and I absolutely love the pacing of the arcs and all of the things that were brought into it, taking things to the next level constantly, the animation direction, the choreography. Like, there's just something about that Majin Vegeta versus Goku fight that I don't think anything's come like close to in terms of like the meaning between that fight and like that rivalry, that history, and everything that fight symbolized between the prince versus this person that grew up in the forest, like the farmer versus the rich kid type of
right.
like scenario right here. There's just something about that I don't think anything's ever come that close to. And then the choreography of that fight, for its time, it was way ahead of its time, and that's just something that revolutionized anime as a whole. So I think Dragon Ball Z deserves that. And Super, that's the problem with what happened with Super. Like, nowadays, after that revolution of Dragon Ball Z, all these other animes started stepping up, and Super, when you look at it, it didn't really innovate too many things until later on in the series, where it did some like till like the midway point where the Goku Black arc started to take place, and that was where a lot of the hate came in, and a lot of the inconsistencies of the writing starting to become more apparent, because you look at the other animes, there's more consistency, there's more of this, that, and the other, and then you look at Dragon Ball Z and you're like, Dragon Ball Z revolutionized everything, so you can't hate on it. But at this day and age, I still prefer Dragon Ball Z more than all of it. It could be nostalgia, couldn't be, but for me, DBZ.
Dragon Ball Kai was really good with Sumitomo's music. Like, I really, because Sumitomo's music in Super was really good, and you know, at first I was gravitating towards Sumitomo's music. I was like, all right, well, let me see how this kind of like feels out. But like, Sumitomo really did a great job in, I would say, captivating Super as a whole. But I remember, like, even when we talked about it many years ago, we were like, hey, so where does Dragon Ball go from here and stuff? And you know what? There were so many things that you just said, that I just said, that we pointed out that were good about Dragon Ball Super. At the same time, you kind of like step back and saying, okay, well, it had so many flaws as well. But the question lingers going forward is, where do we go from here? Like, what do we do next? Like, with this upcoming movie, aside from the film, because the film's gonna happen and then eventually it's gonna be over. Where do we go after that? You know, like, that's the question that I feel like a lot of people have, is, okay, Super's over, the movie came, the movie went, now what? Where do you see Dragon Ball, honestly, in your opinion, in the next, I would say, 5 years, in terms of there being like a TV animated series, or if they decide to end it after the film and then continue eventually down the road? Do you believe that's going to be a possible thing, or should they strike while the iron is hot?
I think they're gonna strike while the iron's hot. They know that it's hot, and then next year of DBZ, Kai, and the Olympic Games, Goku being the icon of that. I think they're gonna capitalize that as much as possible with the movie. I think the movie, because one, everyone's gonna go watch that movie, especially with all the hype with Super ending off in a very good tone.
Oh yeah.
In a positive way, everyone's gonna go there. Everyone's gonna smash records like they did with Battle of Gods and Resurrection F. But this time, if it's an international release, even more than they did before, probably double that, I would predict. And then moving into the next year, all of this hype around the franchise, they're gonna capitalize it. Even in the teaser trailer, they're saying a new adventure begins. Dragon Ball has had this formula that's just been undefeated, and it's similar to like the Pokemon formula in a way. That's why these brands have been around for so long. And I think they're gonna do the same thing. They can nerf things, they can scale things to the right way. There's just this new tier of fighters where it's like above Super Saiyan Blue and maybe even Jiren, below the Grand Priest, and this is where it's going to fill up, and I think this is where they're going to carry things on. They laid the foundation here in Super Forward, so with this movie, I have a feeling it's going to go to good places, because I think they learned from their mistakes in Super, and I think that's what they're going back to the drawing board with this little hiatus that they got here.
Now, I definitely agree that there is going to be something more after having to follow Dragon Ball Super. Now, RedZX, now you're also in the call with us. I wanted to go ahead and ask you as to what you thought about Dragon Ball Super as a whole collectively, whether or not you enjoyed certain moments, and of course, looking back on the series, what would you say that you gravitated towards the most in finding the concept of Dragon Ball Super enjoyable as we progressed arc after arc after arc, until of course we finally got to the Tournament of Power, and concluding everything with Goku having to fight Vegeta as we go into the new film. So what are your thoughts on the series, and how do you feel about Dragon Ball Super as a whole?
I wish Super as a whole was not rushed, because I know, you know, the ending of the Tournament of Power was rushed, and people were saying, oh, if the ending wasn't rushed and blah, blah, blah. It's not the ending that was rushed. Everything about Super as a whole was rushed. Ever since episode 1, like, it was rushed. Like, all of it was rushed. And I wish, you know, if there ever was a new series, like, you know, let's just say a new series was confirmed for next year, if they announce a brand new series, I hope they have time. I hope they have the preparation. I hope, you know, they have everything going into the new series, because I just didn't like how Super was rushed. I still think it's good. I enjoyed it. Like, Super made my Saturdays every time I was watching a new episode, whether it was good or bad. I just looked forward to Super, you know, every single Saturday. But it's just like the biggest flaw of the show itself, it was rushed.
What did what would you say was like your favorite arc or like your favorite moment? Because I'm not gonna lie, like you brought up a very interesting point. Like from episode 1, they were very understaffed, right? Like we knew that from the beginning. They were very understaffed, and a lot of people, well, from what I've noticed, was they jumped on the Dragon Ball Super bandwagon in the beginning, and then once it became cool to hate on the show, a lot of people jumped on that bandwagon just to hate on the show for obvious reasons. I don't think that you were those, you know, kind of people to like just jump on the hate bandwagon, but there were times where you and me and lots of other people have complained about inconsistency and just the flaws of Super. But if you had to look at both the good and the bad, like what did you enjoy about Super, and what would you say, you know, kind of like turned you off while watching the show as well?
What I like about, okay, there's a lot of, Super has a lot of cool moments. Like my favorite like moment in all of Super is the 1 hour special, which, you know, it's 2 episodes because, you know, 2 in 1. I love the 1 hour special. I love how they introduced Ultra Instinct, you know, with Ultimate Battle, you know, that soundtrack theme. Yo, everything just went so smooth with it. And it's funny because I did a video on that today, and basically I was just describing why, you know, the 1 hour special is amazing. And I just love how, you know, the beginning of Goku versus Jiren, like this man went Super Saiyan, that didn't do anything. Super Saiyan 2, that didn't do anything. Skips 3, goes to Super Saiyan God. It does something because Jiren had a move, but this is the interesting part. He had to block with a single finger, so every time Goku would start attacking,
you know what that means? Like the whole context that we got from Battle of Gods and the fight between Goku and Beerus, this dude took that and literally blocked Goku off with a finger.
Yo, Jiren just blew me away. And keep this in mind, before, you know, Goku was trying to communicate with Jiren has not said anything. He only said a few words.
Yeah.
And what I like about Jiren, you know, before he started talking a lot more, is that he was so mysterious. We didn't know much about him. We just knew that his strength alone does the talking.
Yep.
And when this man was blocking all of Super Saiyan God Goku's attacks with just a single finger alone, this man just tells him, like, he questions him. So you can't get serious, huh? Just goes to blue, and even then that doesn't do anything. The whole time Jiren was just, you know, toying around with Goku, so he had to go, you know, blue with Kaioken, and still that did nothing. Still, I just love everything about the, you know, the 1 hour special, and then with the whole, you know, Spirit Bomb struggle. Even though Jiren wasn't struggling at that moment, but just seeing Jiren just, you know, with one arm, like, holding on to the Spirit Bomb, and then this man just puts both of his arms down, and
he pushed it back with his eyes too. But even going back before that, do you remember how ominous and how good the Goku Black arc was until they messed up the ending? See, that's, I don't know how you feel, but for me as a fan, I love anime that's consistent. Like, for example, My Hero Academia, super consistent. Death Note was super consistent, and I really enjoyed the beginning of the Goku Black stuff until they rushed it, and it blew my mind how I covered the interview with Toriyama, how he never even planned for Vegeta to begin with, and then Toei's like, let's do it. And you know, I have to give him credit because that gave us a lot of content for games and stuff, but at the same time, you gave us this character and he was only introduced for like 3 to 5 minutes and that was it. So that really blew me off. But like,
and they also nerfed
Universe Survival arc, which I know I can tell that you really enjoyed. What did you think about the Goku Black stuff?
I enjoyed the Goku Black arc. I enjoyed it from episode 1, and it's like you said, that ending was just like, it wasn't a bad ending. Like, I just want to get that out there. It wasn't a bad ending in my opinion. It's just, it was just rushed. They were just trying to pack up everything, just doing it quick, all in one episode. That like, people like to complain about the Tournament of Powers arcs ending. That felt like an actual ending versus this one where it's just like, oh, like, we're done here. Let's just, you know, do our goodbyes and keep it moving. Like,
yeah,
like.
But also seeing how Trunks was able to slice Zamasu in half with the energy of like a few people, whereas opposed to Vegeto's final Kamehameha did nothing. That was like kind of like, okay, how does that make any sense? And for those of you out there listening, RedZX does cover, you know, Dragon Ball content on his channel, which I do recommend you guys to check out because, as he just said earlier, he did a few videos, you know, breaking down more or less the 1 hour special and how he felt about the show as we're discussing this now. But let me ask you, what was like the worst arc for you that you know, you found least enjoyable? Because everybody universally says the ROF arc because of its like consistency and its animation and its just quality was horrible. How did you feel about it? Like, did you like that, or did you feel like just the arc was not
I couldn't even watch it.
Trash?
I couldn't even watch it, to be honest. Sorry for interrupting you. I really couldn't watch it. It's okay. For those that don't know, like, I want to talk about the Battle of Gods arc. That movie, like, I didn't do a video on this, but it's a masterpiece in my opinion. The movie is absolutely a masterpiece in my opinion. And I was thinking that, yo, they're gonna add all of that into this arc and, you know, give us more content. Not only that, give us brand new information, which they did, but I just didn't like how they executed the arc itself and Super and then Resurrection of F. It's just like nothing was new. There was only like a couple of new things, but that was pretty much it. I couldn't even watch it, to be honest. It was bad. I did not like it.
Would you say the movie was better? Because I think the movie was better, but at the same time,
movie was incredible.
Do that because how many people, you know, watch the films in comparison to watching the show? You know, I kind of get why they did it, because at the same time, the ROF arc to a degree made sense for the Tournament of Power stuff with Frieza, so it kind of like went hand in hand. But yeah, like, what were some of the takeaways for ROF for you in terms of like the arc?
I just didn't like how it, I don't know, a lot of things in it was just forced. Piccolo's death, I didn't really like that. It's just, I don't know, I just did not like a lot of things in there with the whole, it was cool seeing Gotenks, but it's like, this man just fused and out of nowhere he defused quickly. It's just like, what? Like, you just fused, but you defused?
I think the only enjoyable thing for me, I don't know about you, was when Frieza tortured Gohan.
I mean that was a good moment. I also enjoyed Vegeta beating the crap out of Frieza, because that was extended. That was extended versus the movie version where it's like Vegeta just took him down easily.
Yeah. But I mean, like, what really pissed me off was I thought before even the Goku Black stuff, after Gohan went through that, you know, time of pain with Frieza torturing him, I really thought, like, in my heart of hearts that going into the Goku Black arc, Gohan was gonna train, he was gonna do something, because bro, wasn't the whole message that he was just helpless to begin with? He didn't have any means of protecting his friends because he was weak, and I thought after that he would come to the realization of saying, okay, well, you know, I have to step it up, otherwise if something like that happens again, then we're screwed. But they did nothing with him. They really did nothing with him, and you talked about Battle of Gods. Gohan at least attempted to do something, but failed. ROF, kind of the same thing, but failed. Was never once featured during the Champa arc or during the Goku Black stuff, and just with the exception of the TOP, which I felt like he was very underutilized. How did you feel about Gohan in this entire series? The reason why I asked you this, and I asked Paul this, my friend, was the fact that I felt like he was the one singular character that was just totally put to waste. They had so much potential with him, even though he's not a fighter like his father. They could have done so much more with him, I think. Do you feel the same way, or do you feel like he was just best kept to be a scholar and a family man and nothing more?
I mean, that's part of his character, but it's like, if you're gonna build up a character, for him to come to realize, okay, I need to, like, keep training, I want to protect my family, he got something worth protecting now. And it's like, even then, it's like, they haven't been consistent with that. It's like, oh, you see him and it doesn't even look like he's training, and then there's another scene where it looks like he is training. It was back and forth, but I like the way they handle his character in the Tournament of Power arc. I love the exhibition match. I felt like he was doing his thing there. Like, I really love that. But then, you know, afterwards, it was meh.
Yeah, they completely dropped the ball. I mean, I spoke to Paul about this, and the fact that I really wanted to see him in the Champa arc. Can you imagine if he was a part of, like, that fight instead of having Monaka there? If it was Gohan, that would have been really cool, because then we would have had Gohan versus Kaba or Gohan versus Frost, even Gohan versus Hit. That would have been really enjoyable. But I just felt like I felt so bad for the character, because I understand that the execution of Monaka was to get Goku overs for him to push himself, which is kind of dumb because Goku always pushed himself regardless, right? I mean, he always wanted to become the best, and he never stopped training regardless. So I felt like by Whis telling Beerus and everyone, oh, if we needed motivation for him, like, that was a big flaw for me, because I don't know about you, but when do you ever recall Goku not being motivated to do anything, right? Like, especially for training? That was kind of dumb for me. Like, and I felt like they could have replaced Monaka for something else, because after the Champa arc stuff, we never seen Monaka ever again. We saw him here and there, like, delivering milk, but that was it, and that was just a complete waste to me. I mean,
nah, you gotta admit, that whole Monaka thing, that was like the best troll in Super.
Yo,
people thought it was like,
I remember the entire community was creating discussions, including myself. I was a part of this. I really believe the hype that, okay, Toriyama's a gag manga writer, so he tends to, like, swerve you when you least expect it. So I was like, yo, what if this dude has, like, some ferocious transformation and he looks like a bitch, but then he really is, like, all powerful and all meaningful, but then he turned out to be nothing. So I was like, dude, how did you feel about Monaka?
Even though a lot of people were pissed off with the, you know, with the truth about Monaka, I thought it was brilliant, because he was built up to be this guy who was, you know, stronger than Beerus, and then, you know, when we found out the truth, it's like, no, he's not even
yo, he was just, yo, he was nothing. It was
just thinking about it makes me laugh, because I remember there was like a bunch of YouTubers creating discussions, and of course, you know, the forums as well, saying that this man is a god of destruction, blah,
no,
blah.
I wouldn't go that far. No.
no, it was wild, like the theories, like people were coming up with Monaka.
You know what? Looking back on it now, even though the theories were utterly atrocious in the community, a lot of us attributed dumb theories with no evidence as opposed to other ones that are well thought out. You got to admit, Dragon Ball Super did spawn lots of stupid theories in the community that, looking back on it now, it's like, dude, for example, Goten Black being Goku Black. Then we had, you know, the mysterious evildoer that killed Jiren's parents was Jiren himself. Then we had Monaka being a god of destruction, which I never understood. Then we had the whole concept of Zamasu being the Omni King's father and all this crazy stuff. Like, it was insane. Like looking back on it now, like, what would you say was like the wackiest, craziest theory that you've ever seen in the community?
Ooh, oh my, okay, nah, there's a lot. I feel like the Monaka thing had to be number one for me. Oh, no, not even. Yo, can this go outside of Super?
Sure, it can go outside of Super.
Okay. I remember there was a theory floating around with Champa, training Frieza and all of that, blah blah.
I remember
that was a theory. That was a theory, and I'm sitting here like, wait, what? Champa training Frieza? What? Like, I needed to see more. It's just like, what? Yeah, that had to be the most dumbest theory that I've heard, like, ever. I mean, there were other ones, of course, but that one was just like,
there were so many. I just feel like in the end, Dragon Ball has always been a part of my life, and I'm pretty sure it's been a part of your life as well, as Mega Man. That's
Same.
why I encourage you guys to check out Red's channel, because he's into Mega Man and Dragon Ball as well, alongside many other things. I just really do appreciate what Super had attempted to do, because, I mean, let's be honest, the good, the bad, it doesn't matter where you stand as a fan. I mean, I'm pretty certain a lot of people wanted to see a new series regardless, even though it didn't turn out the way a lot of people wanted it to turn out. In the end, I mean, we did get some really good substance from the series. But my final question to you, no biasism, do you prefer Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super by the end of the day?
I gotta go with Z.
Okay, fair enough. Why?
One of the things that I've noticed, and I found this out the other day, is that I find myself watching, and this is also for those who, prefer Z or Kai. I don't really care, but I like to watch Kai a lot when I eat, whenever I eat my dinner and all of that. And I've noticed that, Dragon Ball Z has a lot of replay value versus Super, where it's like, you go to one moment and it's like, that's it. You don't really watch the entire episode as replay value. You just watch it once and it's just there, I guess.
Right.
And that's how I feel with Super. I mean, the 1 hour special, and of course there's like other episodes that, I will watch it again and again and again because it's good. But I mean, like, as like, arc to arc, I would rewatch it again because it has that replay value and it's really good. I enjoyed it. I love the soundtracks. Everything just goes into it versus Super, where it's like, I don't want to say it was a complete mess, but it's like it's around in that category where it's a mess.
At the end of the day, I definitely feel that Dragon Ball Super as a whole did fulfill my needs and desires in having to see a brand new series. Now, depending on if you guys agree or disagree with the overall narrative of what Super was, it's subjective by the end of the day. Whether or not you guys like the show, whether or not you guys hate the show, that's entirely up to you to decide. And I think as a fan, for me, I really enjoyed what Super presented in terms of its overall utilization of transformations, brand new characters, the introduction of brand new universes. Even though the execution for most of these concepts was done piss poor, I do feel as if by the end of the day, they at least tried to provide substance in giving us, the fans, something to look forward to in the future. So as many people would say Dragon Ball Super was terrible, again, that was your subjective opinion. The same goes as people saying that Dragon Ball Super was the best thing to happen since sliced bread. Again, that's your subjective opinion. I do enjoy and did enjoy so many different aspects of Dragon Ball Super, even though there were certain aspects that didn't make any sense. By the end of the day, as many flaws as the show had, the show also presented some very unique concepts and really unique storytelling ideas that made the show that much more enjoyable. So by the end of the day, guys, let us know what you all think about Dragon Ball Super as a whole in the comment section below. Did you guys like the show? Did you guys hate the show? What were your favorite arcs? What were your overall favorite moments in Dragon Ball Super? Let us know in the comment section below, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys are new to this channel, don't forget to go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Turn on all notifications to be notified whenever a brand new video is posted. Follow me on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and of course Twitter. I will leave links to that down in the description box below. Thank you all so much for watching. Tune back in for more, and I'll be seeing each and every single one of you guys in the next Dragon Ball video. Take it easy, guys. Cue my outro, bitch.